All right. We're going to have 30, 40 minutes. Jason Timpf, Hoops tonight. That is one of the best, most intense NBA games I have seen in years. The crowd, first of all, the Knicks shot making. I cannot remember a game when everybody, Cat in the first half, Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG. Listen, this is a cliche, but you always hear, oh, that team wanted it more. And I'm always like, oh, give me a break. I'm sorry. That crowd fed that team. I didn't think the Knicks offensively, Jason, had that second half in them. That was an incredible display of shot making.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. My wife was kind of just piddling around, walking through the room, and she goes, that Jalen Brunson, he really has been putting the Celtics away in this series. And I was like, he's been doing this to everybody this entire playoff run. It's like you get into a game with him where it's close late, and he's one of the most gifted shot makers I've ever watched, Colin. It's almost like an alpha, like number one version of what Jamal Murray does, where it's just a steady diet of like right shoulder fades, left shoulder fades, stepping back to the left, stepping back to the right, off of movement in a off ball situation, off of movement in a high ball screen. He can just hit so many different types of jump shots from so many different spots on the floor that it gives him like a lot of counter moves so that he can always get a shot off. And then he's just worked so well towards polishing up his shot making in those situations. It's just remarkable. And I thought also Tom Thibodeau giving Brunson that quick rest, kind of an interesting subplot in this game, was Jaylen Brown being in some foul trouble and not starting the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And what was weird about that is
Yep.
typically that's Jaylen Brown's unit. But because Tatum had to lead that early fourth quarter unit, Tatum just kept hunting switches. And so it was a lot of one-on-one from Tatum. And Tatum was hitting shots, but no other Celtic was in any rhythm. And what was really a smart move from Tibbs, I was joking with a couple of my Lakers buddies. I was like, is Tom Thibodeau about to pull a JJ Redick and just play everybody for the whole 24 minutes? But no, he brings in Deuce McBride in the early fourth quarter. And so then they start running action for Mikal Bridges. And Mikal catches a heater and starts hitting those little mid-range 15-footers, and the ball's moving around, and OG's hitting shots, and Cat's getting a bucket, Mitchell Robinson's getting a dunk, and the Knicks had a bunch of guys in rhythm in that fourth quarter, and so even when Tatum was hitting shots, it kind of felt like it was over because the Knicks just had so many more things going, and I mean, even at the time of the Tatum injury, they were up by 9 at that point, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Colin, I agree with you, that was an unbelievable game. And that Tatum injury is just a huge buzzkill at the end of that.
Yeah, we'll circle back to the Tatum injury, which is absolutely awful. But the game felt like it was over before that. I was thinking about Brunson, and we talk about this in football all the time, where you land matters. I mean, Mahomes would be great anywhere. He may be the best quarterback ever because he lands with Andy Reid. Like, it does matter. So Brunson's got a little Steve Nash. Steve Nash, Canada, Santa Clara, goes to the Mavericks. Good player. Plays with another star, international star, Dirk. And he goes to Phoenix and just blossoms. Always talented. You're like, oh my God, he's the most valuable player in the league. This is the best offense. That was before the three-ball era. Phoenix was scoring 128 regularly, like before the three-ball. And you're like, well, I knew he was good. I didn't think he was the most valuable player. Brunson, similarly, plays in Dallas, has an international cohort, is very good player. Nobody disputes it. Very good player. Goes to New York. They give him, like Nash, the keys to the offense. And I always liked Brunson. Like Nash, I never saw this. I never saw, honestly, he right now, and I'm talking the whole league, he's as good of a late game shot maker as the league has. And that, you'd watch Nash when he would never touch it with his right hand and he'd do that left-hander off the glass like 3 times a game. And you're like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. You're 6'1". How are you throwing that over trees? And I'm not saying their games are similar, but it just goes to show, Jason, when you empower a player who's got a little chip, who's overlooked, you give him the keys to the offense, he gets the right coach, it's a magical thing.
He's the first guard that I can think of in, over a decade, because that's how long Steph's been doing it. He's the first guard to legitimately make it a debate who's the best small guard in the league. Like, it used to be Steph forever, and it wasn't close. Like, every time someone would bring up Dame, you're like, nowhere near the defender, nowhere near the off-ball player. Jalen Brunson and this surgical walking teams down over and over and over again in the fourth quarter thing, it's remarkable. He's turning losses into wins. It's amazing stuff that he's doing. He's doing it in this series against elite on-ball defenders over and over again, shedding Derek White with nasty post spin moves as he fakes him out one way or the other, hunting the Celtics bigs in space. He is producing offensively at the level of the greatest players in the league. And it's no longer a conversation to me as to whether or not Jalen Brunson could be the best player on a championship team. He absolutely can be. And Colin, I have to bring this up because I think this is important in the context of the storyline heading into the series. One of the themes coming into the series is Boston killed the Knicks in the regular season by hunting Brunson and by hunting Cat. And Cat has been a nightmare defensively in the series, although he did do a couple of better possessions against Tatum down the stretch of this game. But Jalen Brunson has been very good defensively in this series. And repeatedly in crunch time in the wins they had in Boston, he got stops on Tatum on an island. He got stops on Jaylen Brown in an island. He survived post-up mismatches against Al Horford. Like, he's playing two-way basketball too. Like, this is one of our better competitors in the league who is demonstrating for the world that he belongs in the conversation with the best players in the league. Like, he legitimately has a case to be the best small guard in the league right now, and it's crazy.
BMW didn't just design an all-electric SUV. Every detail of the BMW iX was crafted with passion and precision. With the BMW iX, you'll experience unmatched power, utility, spaciousness, and versatility. My favorite feature has to be the cloud-based navigation that monitors charge levels and locates nearby charging stations so I can drive electric with ultimate ease. BMW lets performance do the talking, and the scouting report is in. Experience the all-electric BMW iX and witness dedication in every detail. BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Yeah, and I said this. I felt like Ewing was the best Knick ever, and I always felt, Melo was a little overstated because I thought he was a profound offensive talent, but not necessarily not a great leader. And I said this a couple years ago. I said I would take, Walt Frazier, Ewing, Bernard King. Brunson feels like he's in that class. I mean, for as bad as the football teams are, he's like the best quarterback in New York. Like, he is what New York teams should be. New York teams should be tough. They should be resilient. They should be fighters. They shouldn't be, they shouldn't be slick. That's for LA teams or Miami teams. It's like New York teams, New York basketball from Syracuse, the Pearl Washingtons, like Syracuse, the matchup zone defense, the great Knick teams with Pat Riley. Walt Frazier was a great defensive guard. Willis Reed. Like, the culture of basketball in New York is tough and physical. And I just watched them tonight, and I thought to myself, listen, if the NBA, and I think it's a really smart plan, is going to allow for more physical play, I do think there is a Cat issue defensively on this team. That's why Mitchell Robinson is in that game in the second half. Like, we'll take Cat scoring early. We'll go with Robinson, even though he can't hit a free throw. I do think they have to kind of clean up the pick and roll defense with Cat at some point in personnel. But the league is allowing this kind of physical play, and their ball movement, their defense. I don't know. I look at it and I'm like, I don't think I'd screw it up. The chemistry is just remarkable. Like, I think Cat is a really nice offensive piece, but God, the well-coached teams are going to attack him. If you had to, and I know it's not the night, but I came out of that thinking they don't need KD. They don't need another shot maker. That was my take. Do they?
I think a more reliable version of Mitchell Robinson at the center position would be a really interesting piece. Like, you mentioned the pick and roll defense. Let's say the results hold, which I believe they will. If Tatum's injured, I think the Knicks are going to win the series. And I believe the Pacers will close out the Cavs, although that's not necessarily over. The Pacers are a very, very difficult team to guard. And they specifically capitalize on dudes who are slow-footed in space. That is how they take advantage of you. And the Cavs are fast, and they're cutting them to pieces. They hung 80 points on them yesterday in the first half. The Pacers are playing some special basketball. So a lot of it depends on how next round goes. if they hold up well and they beat the Pacers, I think it's a much more complicated conversation about the type of move they need to make. But if they get if they just get flat out beat by the Pacers, I think what you have to look at is Mikal Bridges kind of makes sense as a secondary player next to Jalen Brunson. He can run that action when he's off the floor. OG Anunoby to me is like the quintessential weak side scoring forward. Like he just scores off of skip passes. The ball gets skipped to him and he shoots a three or he drives the closeout. Jalen Brunson is proving that he can be that on-ball guard that can lead a championship team. Get a kick-ass center. Get somebody that can really guard, that can really defend in space, that can really do the things that they need to kind of tie all of that together. And I'm not sure, like, there's like maybe they can turn around and try to flip Cat towards, like, you know, maybe they call Dallas and they go, hey, maybe you want to pair Cat with Anthony Davis and we'll take Derek Lively and PJ Washington for more forward depth or something like that. I could see them making a move centered around Cat if he gets exposed in the Pacers series, but so much of it just depends on what happens in that series.
Hey, so we all make mistakes, but owning up to them is the right thing to do. So, you know, Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula and it did not go over well with their fans. So Degree's whole thing is it turns up the sweat and odor protection when you turn up the effort. And good thing it does, because Cool Rush fans really turned up the effort to bring the original formula back. One guy even started an online petition, and Degree listened. They admitted they effed up. They're bringing back the original Cool Rush scent. They're bringing it back, and it's exactly how you remember it. Cool, crisp, and fresh. It's back in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. There's a reason it's been the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. It's the same reason why people were not happy when it changed. So if you've never tried it, it might be a good time to see what the fuss is about. Head to your local Walmart, Target, and try the OG Degree Cool Rush for yourself. Let's talk Boston. One of the things that really jumped out to me, first, credit to Tatum, who played one of his best playoff games as a Celtic. He was aggressive. He was hunting it. He was great. But one of the things I really noticed is the reason, as you noted earlier, the Knicks had such a great rhythm is they were just, Brunson, they moved the ball. I think the Celtics get into this. It's not just the threes. They're a math equation. When they shoot threes poorly, they don't move the ball. And it just becomes, you know, Pritchard off a screen. And I feel like some of that's on Missoula. There's a difference, but I mean, again, they shoot a lot of threes. But I go back to earlier this season when they were flying through good teams on the road. And I would watch them and I'd be like, God, their ball movement's exceptional. When I watched in the second half and I'm like, oh, this is like Tatum or Pritchard off a screen. I mean, and I thought Tatum played well, but a couple of his shots before the injury, you're like, bro, that is deep by your standards. And I think part of this series, I think Missoula did not do a great job. I don't think we can just blame it on missing threes. Why did they have 2 games where they were atrocious, and why in the second half did they struggle? I didn't like their lack of ball movement.
The shots they took in game 3 were the same shots they took in game 2. They just went in. And, you know, I was actually talking about this in my show today because I was trying to, like, think about what I've learned from this Knicks Celtics series to this point. And I think we can all agree that the Celtics, when things are humming, are the best team in the league because they have just unbelievable shot making mixed in with like high level read and react stuff for wide open threes. And they can be great defensively. Like they were so good defensively in the first half of this game. They had the Knicks in handcuffs. But then there's also this lower floor than we all imagined. And the reason why is they just have never had an audible. Like when they don't hit shots, they don't have like the Nuggets who can be like, okay, Jamal Murray doesn't really have it going. We're going to spam low post stuff with Jokic. Or Jokic doesn't really have it going. We're going to go to the 2-man game with Jamal Murray. Or Aaron Gordon has the size mismatch down low. We can just dump it down to him. They won a finals game doing that a couple years ago. There's a certain amount of variety that you see in the best offenses in the league. And with Boston, it's kind of right now like Tatum or Brown hunting mismatches and they're driving kick attack. And that's basically all they have in their offensive game. And there is a susceptibility they have to what happened tonight and what happened in the first 2 games, which is all the other guys are out of rhythm because it's turning into one-on-one ball at the top of the key. And the shot making from Tatum was remarkable in that third quarter. I mean, he hit 3 or 4 really tough turnaround fadeaways, but there's a little bit of a fool's gold element there if the other teammates are not involved. Drew Holiday, wide open three in the left corner, misses it in the fourth quarter because it's the only catch and shoot three he got for like a 20-minute span of real time. Derek White misses a corner three, even though he had been hot all night, because in the late third quarter, the ball wasn't moving around. He wasn't getting touches. He ends up missing that shot. And this is where it's the smart game plan. The Knicks had been using traditional coverages with Cat throughout the series. And there in that second half, they were like, just switch and just try to score on Cat. And guess what? Cat got scored on. He got scored on some. But it turned into a one-on-one contest, and the other guys all got froze out. No other Celtics in rhythm. I bet you if you pull the numbers from the tail end of that game, Tatum probably outscored the entire rest of his team over the final 17, 18 minutes of that game.
It was ISOs at the top, wasn't ball movement. People got cold while the Knicks, everybody was getting touches. Josh Hart didn't have a big offensive game, but that didn't mean he didn't touch the ball, and that's the difference. Porzingis was disappointing. I will tell you, over the course of the season, Peyton Pritchard's emergence, I don't know exactly what Porzingis is. I thought tonight he was in bad position. He had multiple opportunities where he had the best position off a rebound and jumped too early or got pushed out of the way. I don't know. I think that's a movable piece. Like, I think they'll come out of this series. My opinion is they'll move Porzingis.
Well, let's dig into this a little bit, Colin, because, I mean, fingers crossed that it's good news for Tatum, but I have a feeling that it's what it looked like, and he's probably going to be out for all of next season. And if that is the case, Kristaps Porzingis is about to turn 30 years old, and he's made of tissue paper. Drew Holiday is 34. Al Horford's 38. Derek White is 30. And Jalen Brown's really good, but he's 28, and he kind of is what he is at this point. I think it's possible, if the Tatum injury is confirmed to be what it looks like, that Boston ends up essentially fire sailing a bunch of these guys this summer. Because what's the point? You're going to run back with Jalen Brown and 39-year-old Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis, and like they'd be fine, but they're not. They're all of a sudden like the fourth or fifth best team in the West.
They have, if they sign their first round pick, they have $500 million on the payroll. New owners who have a new bank note. That's not going to work.
Exactly. They need to be. If it's confirmed, and I believe it will be, I mean, the body language, it's just brutal. You could just tell Tatum's heart was broken. But I think you almost have to look at it like the 2020 season for the Warriors after the Kevin Durant injury and after the Klay Thompson injury, where it's like, this is the year to be bad and to get off of money and to bring in the means with which to rebuild around Tatum and Brown. Because Tatum is 27, and he probably will make a full recovery and still be an all-NBA level player when he gets back. And so there's an opportunity to kind of like use this year as a gap year to kind of get off of some of this old money. Drew Holiday is going to be useful to somebody. There's going to be somebody out there who will look at Drew Holiday and be like, he'll help us win a championship. Horford might even be that guy for somebody. There's, Derek White, I think, would fetch a super high price right now, although I wouldn't get rid of him unless he fetched a super high price because he's at the age where he can still help Tatum and Brown. But yeah, their entire outlook fundamentally changes by this, because this was already, Colin, kind of a sneaky old roster. And it kind of felt like a 2 to 3 year window where you had an opportunity to win. And if Tatum's down, there's no opportunity to win.
Now it's time for Power Players, brought to you by BMW, the ultimate driving machine. This week, it's Anthony Edwards, Ant, whose electric play is charging the way for another Western Conference Finals appearance for the Minnesota Timberwolves. In Game 3, Ant had 28 in the second half alone to lead Minnesota's comeback win. What is it that sets apart these power players from the rest? Bottom line, it's their attention to detail, innovative playing styles, relentless drive for performing at the highest level. The same goes for BMW iX, everything you love about the ultimate driving machine electrified. For the record, nice job, Goldie. Celtics only had 15 assists, second fewest all season. So my eyes and your eyes did not deceive us. ISO ball. Isolation top, didn't pass the ball. We were right. They're averaging 19 assists in the playoffs, down from 26 in the regular season. So this is Joe Mazzulla. They're not moving the ball. Nice job, Goldie. Yeah, and here's the other thing I thought about. I'll throw this at you. Oklahoma City is only getting better. Okay. If you look at San Antonio, who has the number 2 pick and 2 young stars, actually
With
3,
Fox, yeah.
only getting better. Yeah. Houston may be in the KD or Giannis sweepstakes, only getting better. What's interesting is that this may be the Knicks year, circling back to the Knicks. It's like, guys, the West, Cooper Flagg's going west. Dallas now is, with that front line, is going to be something. Dallas, OKC, Houston, San Antonio, the argument you can make today, they will all be better. Golden State won't. Lakers may not. Those 4 will be. So it really creates urgency. Like we know this. Remember the Seahawks? We thought in the NFL we're going to have a dynasty. They win one. They get to the second. Weird play call at the goal line. Never get back. That play call did something to the locker room and the culture. They never recovered. I mean, you say, oh, Boston will be fine. What if Tatum's out next year? It's one thing when he misses 2 games. It's another when he misses 82. Porzingis you can't trust. They may be Denver. The Celtics may very well be Denver. The Knicks may end up, if they can get to the finals and snag one, with all the money and all the greatness of Boston. What if New York's like steals a championship? I mean, that's what's so crazy about this sport, is that we're in a run now where there are no great teams. But it looks like over the next 2 to 3 years, the West could have more than one. So I want to talk about that for a second. I do feel like Boston's going to be out. Cleveland's out. Well, New York matches up with everybody else. I mean, OKC would go into that final as one of the youngest finals teams ever. Are we looking at everything falling for the Knicks?
Watch out for the Pacers, Colin. They are reaching a level on both ends of the floor now that is really impressive. Like, I know the Cavs are banged up. Darius Garland with his toe injury, and Mobley's got an ankle. Donovan Mitchell's got an ankle now. But that team won 64 games, and this is the best way I could describe it, Colin. The Cavs beat the Pacers in the second half 70-49 yesterday and still lost by 20. Okay. Like, that's how bad the Pacers beat them yesterday. So like, this Pacers team is, I'm nervous about Karl Anthony Towns guarding in that matchup. That said, as we've seen with Denver in the OKC matchup, if you are facing a team that has some iffy shooters that you can help off of, it's an easier matchup for the Knicks. So like, in a weird way, I give them a puncher's chance against an OKC because they'd be able to load up the strong side and all that kind of stuff. Yep. But it's like that Pacers matchup is just such an interesting one with Cat, because it's just a disaster for him having to guard in space, and Miles Turner's hitting every 3 he takes right now, which is causing problems for opposing bigs. And the Pacers are just playing at a really high level. So I would look at that Knicks Pacers series. My initial gut feeling is to favor Indiana, to be clear. So that's not an insult to the Knicks. It's just kind of a matchup thing. And I just am seeing stuff with Indiana that I think is pretty special. They're kind of like the quintessential team basketball. Like, everyone is playing super well on that team. They're defending, they're picking up full court. Rick Carlisle has them playing super hard for 48 minutes every single night. But this has opened up in the sense that I'll just put it this way, Colin. Even if the Knicks won tonight, which, I mean, we agree they would have, even if Tatum didn't get hurt, I still wouldn't have been surprised if Boston came back and won the series. But now it looks like they're almost certainly going to advance. And if they advance, they certainly have a great chance. Once you're in the conference finals, it's like anything can happen at that point.
Yeah, it was really funny. Tonight was the first night watching the Knicks, and it was late. It was pre-Tatum injury. Probably 7 minutes left, and I thought, I'll go back to the beginning. I just think New York's built for this series. I think it means more. I think the officials are letting them play. I think they're winning the coaching matchup. And they're underdogs. That's a powerful thing. Well, this has been great. So, folks, we just broke down Celtics and Knicks. So what we're going to play next, we did these in inverse order. Right after the NBA lottery, Jason and I came on. surprised to say the least. So this was great. You and I now will go watch the Warriors, but we take you back, folks, to minutes after today's fascinating and shocking NBA lottery. The NBA playoffs are heating up, and if you want to catch the action in person, and I know you do and I do, go to Game Time. They make getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard-to-get playoff tickets. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. So last-minute deals, killer, all-in prices, views from your seat. The lowest prices guaranteed. Game Time is great. It takes the guesswork out of buying professional basketball playoff tickets. And you don't want to go there guessing. They have zone deals. You can save even more when you choose a section. Let Game Time choose the seats. And with Game Time ticket coverage, your price is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. The code is Colin for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account. The redeem code COLIN, $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, absolutely bonkers. I've said this before. Take games away. This is one of my favorite nights of the year. I just love it. And first of all, once they, I didn't want to see Toronto win it. I'm sorry. I want Cooper Flagg to be here. I didn't want to see New Orleans, Washington, Charlotte. After watching Shooting Guards, that documentary, I can't root for the Wizards ever again. I know it's a different group. I was so disgusted by it. But I said earlier today on FS1, I said, if San Antonio wins, Stephon Castle, Wemby, Cooper Flagg, I said, oh, poor Oklahoma City. They've done everything right. They had Westbrook, Durant, Harden couldn't win. Now they're going to have this SGA Holmgren roster, and they got this train for the next decade. But it's the Dallas Mavericks. It makes me think of this. Listen, I thought the trade, Luka to the Lakers, was terrible. But I said before, the new CBA, he qualified Luka for $70 million a year. And I was talking to one of my only friends that ever deals with billionaires. He's in venture capital. And he said, listen, man, he said, people are so rich now, 30 million's a rounding error. But even for a billionaire, $75 million for a basketball player, he better play defense. He better be in shape. He better be healthy. He said, they're not paying that to Luka. He goes, and that was his whole theory. He goes, the pressure on Nico, some of it was like, okay, $75 million. He's missed the last two camps. So whether you liked it or not, I did think it was worthy of discussion. They just didn't get enough out of it. 3 firsts, AD, Austin Reeves, and another pick. It's like, okay, now we can sleep on it. But here's what's funny. Jason Timpf, essentially, instead of $300 million, you get the best domestic prospect maybe in 10 years.
Since AD for Zion.
I mean, is it not?
No, go ahead.
Did the basketball gods not grant them the greatest gift ever?
I'm not Mr. The NBA is rigged. I'm not that guy. But if you were that guy, this would be the day to make the case, because in addition to the Dallas piece, which we'll get to in just a second, I think that the league has now just teed up San Antonio for the easiest Giannis trade that you could possibly imagine. And we can get into that in a second. But the Dallas front is super fascinating because Cooper Flagg in many ways is everything that Luka isn't, in the sense that he's got this like incredible work ethic, proven like details-oriented, freakish competitor. But what he doesn't have is like just whatever you want to call that magic quality Luka has, which just brings that top side offensively that very few players in NBA history have reached by his age. And Cooper Flagg has a little bit of that sort of weakness, in the sense that he doesn't have a singular point of his game that you can point to where it's like, oh, he is like an A+++ athlete, or he is a A+++ shooter or anything like that. But he's just so versatile down the line that he brings an element that Luka Doncic didn't bring. He's such a natural fit next to Anthony Davis, which I really like. There are some big picture questions with Dallas's roster now with PJ Washington. Like, how does he fit into this mix? I think on one hand, I'm just so thrilled that Cooper didn't go to a team that was trying to be bad. I think that that's one of the nice kind of upsides of this is that it prevents
Yeah.
that sort of mediocrity being rewarded. And then on the Giannis front, with San Antonio, what I find super fascinating is there are these three teams that are obviously teed up to be able to go get Giannis, and that's Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Houston. And Giannis going to Oklahoma City would be no fun. Like, that's no fun. They're just going to kill
Yeah.
everybody. Like that's literally no fun. And then Houston, it's kind of an interesting fit, but Houston is like athletic and can't shoot. So they seem to make the perfect sense for a KD team. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
like, ideally, Giannis going to San Antonio makes the most sense. They have the clear pieces to be able to offer in terms of like, they can give Milwaukee both picks and like a really intriguing young prospect like Stephon Castle and a specific pick in this upcoming draft, the number 2 overall pick, where they could hope to get a super high level guard to help in the future. And so with that being the case, like,
Right.
I think this is broken out just about perfectly for what the league would probably like to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, I don't think I'd mess. The only thing I thought if San Antonio won the lottery was Stephon Castle, Wemby, and Cooper Flagg, I thought Oklahoma City would be like, okay, all right, we're going to move Holmgren and 7 picks and Lou Dort for Giannis. Like I'm sorry, but this is going to be a freight train for 8 years in San Antonio. So I was saying, if you're Oklahoma City, you were rooting against San Antonio. They may not beat you next year, but that was scary. I wouldn't have minded Philadelphia winning, but I feel like it would have been almost unfair because they've really, I mean, let's be honest, they held on to Embiid too long. They blamed everybody except Embiid for all their problems. It's like, that's not fair. But I also think, as a sportscaster, when I look at this move for Dallas, is that I said this to a friend the other day. I said, the best trade partner for Dallas? They need a play initiator. They need Austin Reeves. And the Lakers need size. And Dallas has a really deep front line. I said, they're not going to make that move. Now I think to myself, well, I think what Dallas needs is somebody like Cooper Flagg, who, let's just say he's Jayson Tatum. I don't think Kyrie's going to play next year, not until at least the trading deadline. So it's Dallas has some extra size to play with. But good God, look at this, Jason. The West is already better. Dallas now gets Cooper Flagg. San Antonio gets the second best players, the Rutgers kid everybody loves. I mean, I keep looking at this thing. I was talking to Rachel Nichols today. The West is just going to get better. And Giannis, Milwaukee's not trading him in the East. They're trading him West. I mean, that's what I said about Milwaukee today in the Giannis trade. Take out Boston. If you go and get a Chet Holmgren and multiple picks, or go to Houston and get Şengün, Jalen Green, 6 picks, and Jabari Smith, I'm throwing names out. Outside of Boston, you're not that far away from being the number 2 team in the East. In the West, you could not give up a Giannis. It would be decimating. Portland, they move off Dame. They have all this talent. They're irrelevant. If you had to guess, Giannis, who's the best fit? And I agree with you. Houston needs a shooter. Giannis probably isn't the perfect fit.
Yeah, the thing that would be really nice with Giannis as a frontline partner with Victor Wembanyama is their games complement each other on a bunch of specific levels. So, for instance, Victor Wembanyama is blossoming as this like 3-point centric center. And he very clearly likes to take that shot. It's something he hunts when he's out there. So there's kind of like a spacing dynamic to where you don't want to have 2 centers basically playing with each other that both want to work right by the basket. And so there's kind of a natural fit there. But the second piece of it is Wemby has some vulnerability to size and strength, and Giannis does not. And so anchoring Wemby with a 6'11" forward that is one of the most physically dominant forwards of his era is kind of a perfect natural fit there. And they already have, with the De'Aaron Fox piece, the ball handling piece. So you can actually see this rim protection center. Giannis has always played better next to a center. When the Bucks used to play him at center, they used to have issues because he's not as good at defending pick and roll as he is as like kind of a traditional help side defender. And so Wemby can defend pick and roll. Giannis can be their low man help side defender. De'Aaron Fox is your point of attack guard. It just has such a natural fit there. And one of the things that was going to get tricky with San Antonio, and this is where that second pick is super interesting. You get to the question where you're like, man, are we going to have to give up Stephon Castle and Devin Vassell to make this happen? The number 2 pick is probably going to be Dylan Harper, and he's a very interesting guard out of Rutgers that has size and has some athleticism and can really get to the basket. Dylan Harper gives you another piece to include in a deal like that to maybe keep a Castle or to maybe keep a Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell is kind of an off-ball shooter archetype, so he might be the perfect guy to keep. He's also older and a little bit closer to being ready to contribute in a serious context. And so it kind of just feels like the stars are aligning in that way. If I'm Houston, I want to bargain serious for Giannis, but KD is just such a nice backup plan for them to go to that just fits so nicely there. And I'm so glad you mentioned the Austin Reeves Dallas piece, because that deal will never happen after what happened. If the Mavs do another deal with the Lakers, their fans might revolt. But there's such like an obvious like Gafford, Austin Reeves, like maybe
there's no question.
Something like I think the Lakers would need to get more because I think Austin's a better player than Gafford. But there's a version of that deal they could put together where they get some athleticism back and it makes some sense. And it's just a question of whether or not that type of partnership would ever work out. The other group that I'd look at if I was the Lakers with Austin is look at Brooklyn and see if they can't get like a Nick Claxton or something like that in that type of deal.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video. Yeah, it's oh, I loved it so much tonight. It just cracked me up. Dallas, San Antonio, 76ers get the third choice, and Charlotte. I will say, there's one thing I do think that really works in the NBA's favor. When you see a lot of these G League guys like Jalen Green, and you kind of put your arms up in the air as an NBA commissioner and go, wow, a lot of these guys who are flourishing, these young guys, went to college or they're international, which their academy system's better than our current kind of G League system. And it's not that people will push back on the G League, but with NIL money at the top 10 programs now, comparable, relative to the NIL money or to the G League money, I do think the domestic product, the draft is going to become less international at the top and more domestic, or at least it won't look like last year. I mean, this year is a great example. It's very domestic product. And so I think that really matters. I've said this for years. I understood the G League pre-NIL, but I've said this about Jalen Green. He has no defined offensive game. Even if you spend a year in college with a Dan Hurley or a Bill Self or a Tom Izzo, just a year of hard coaching, college campus fundamentals, maturing, I think it really matters. Also, playing in March, playing on television, playing in a Big Ten or SEC environment where there's real pressure. Bad game, the students give you the side eye. Like, that's real pressure for an 18, 19-year-old. I mean, Cooper Flagg, you play at Duke, you have 15 games on Natty TV, and then you have March. So I do think college basketball has been a bit marginalized by the league. I got it pre-NIL. But now if I was a dad, I would take a little less and go with a marketing advantage of Kansas, Syracuse, UConn. Would you not?
I think you're dead on with this, Colin. There is a thing that happens in the G League where they prepare you for the pro game in a certain way, in the sense that they'll put you in some NBA-esque roles where you're either running high ball screens or you're behaving as the roll man screener or you're attacking closeouts on the weak side, different NBA defensive concepts. All that's great. But you're not going to capture the intensity, the stakes, the overall just like passion and vibe that you get in college basketball. It's the closest thing that you're going to find that replicates NBA playoff basketball. I also think the coaching matters. Like, you're just going to give your kid the best access to, real, like intentional, detail-oriented coaching, because at that level, it makes such a huge difference when you're working with those types of athletes. And like, I think to your point, having NIL, incentivizing kids to stay in the college game, in addition to just being great for just basketball culture, because To be honest, NCAA
Yes.
basketball is such a huge part of what I grew up rooting for. When I was a kid, Colin, I barely watched the NBA. I watched a lot of Arizona, the University of Arizona basketball. When I was like
Yeah.
16, 17, when I was going to play high school ball, those were the kids we idolized. We idolized the kids playing at the U of A. It's just, it's part of the culture. I think it just needed this. And I'm so glad the NCAA was willing to just kind of adapt into this era because we needed this for
Yes.
this sport to survive. I think it's better for the basketball players in our country.
Yeah, and I've said this. I understand the NBA struggling with regular season ratings because regular season playoff basketball is about veteran teams and recognizable players. So the numbers go up plus the intensity. Regular season, there's a lot of guys you don't know. There's a lot of bad teams, and those are international players you didn't watch or G League guys you didn't watch. And I've said this. Amon Thompson is obviously G League and a great player, but you watch Jalen Green and you're like, man, he could have used college. He could have really used college. He feels lost. Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, we're on what year? Year 4. I'm still trying to quite figure out what he is. He can't play with the veterans. I mean, Golden State's culture is classic. Every young guy struggles. Every young guy struggles. It could be Wiseman. It can be Kuminga, a Jordan Poole, wore out veteran player. And I love college basketball. And I was always more NBA than college because for a lot of reasons. I grew up with Bill Walton and the Blazers and the Sonics when they won championships in the 70s. I'm showing my age. But I will say those Christian Laettner Duke teams, the Fab Five teams, the Phi Slamma Jamma, it is impossible to describe to a 20-year-old what college basketball was like 35 years ago. You could pick up Street and Smith and you could name the first, second, and third team All-Americans off the top of your head because it was, Duncan's coming back and Ewing. I can remember going in Las Vegas. There's a grocery store chain called Smith's, and this is like 20 years ago. And I got this because I always get a Street and Smith like before the college basketball season. And I looked on the cover, they had the All-American team, and it was 4 high schoolers. And I was like, okay, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't do it. So I just thought God, this is fun. How about the Dallas Mavericks?